and welcome to another episode of Panel on Panels, the podcast about all things comics and comics related. I'm your host, John Campbell. Joining me as always, Mike Gergoni.
Greetings, John.
And Mr. Donovan Eilert.
Hi, everybody. How's it going?
Now we're very excited today to welcome another guest of the show. Sitting across from me is Brennan Wagner.
Hello.
Short, sweet, simple.
It's
I like
very
it.
precise.
So, Brennan, you work as a colorist primarily?
Yeah, that's how I pay the bills.
Okay. It's pretty cool, though. Pay the bills with comics work.
Yes. I like to do other stuff and would ultimately like to get out of coloring, though.
Okay, all right.
Like, what do you want to do?
The whole package.
Write, draw.
Letter.
Letter.
You want a letter?
binding,
No binding.
Cutting up the pages.
Somebody else.
No.
Print press.
Hey, man. you
Making
said-
the ink.
You said the whole package, so I don't know.
Stop at where the credits stop.
Okay.
All right, yeah.
Would you want all the credits to be separate but with your name after each one? Or do you want it to be your name and then all the credits afterwards?
That's excessive, I think.
Okay.
Probably just be the one.
Just
Title, Brennan Wagner.
cool.
Or maybe the title is Brennan Wagner. It's
Ooh.
the whole package is just...
Cool. Brennan is the whole package.
That'll be
What do you want to say?
That's going to be the title of the episode,
Title
right?
of the- yep.
Brennan
Chapter
is
one.
the whole package.
Yeah. Self-proclaimed.
Brennan, we obviously, if people don't know, we should probably bring up the fact that your father is actually you're kind of from a comics family.
Indeed, yep.
Yeah, because for those who don't know, your father is Matt Wagner, who's
Of Matt Wagner fame.
yeah, certainly pretty
To
well
you, he's
known.
probably dad.
Pop.
Pop.
Pop. I like it. It's there's something kind of old fashioned about that I like, which fits some of the comics you guys have been working on actually.
We have an old-fashioned relationship, he and I. It's like a family industry. You
And
know?
then your aunt is a woman who comes up on this show literally every time we have a guest on.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't.
They have like a horror story.
No, they don't. And, she's the thing. We have to get her on the show at some point because she literally connects every guest we've had so far.
Oh, wow.
In
Like
some way or another.
There's a spider web with Diana Schutz at the middle. of
Yeah.
it.
She's been working in comics a long time.
Yeah.
It's so interesting that we
Yep.
had Morgan we had on, of course, who's a good friend of yours. And,
Ancient.
yeah, and
I mean, since I could walk.
and he talked about
Friendship is old and terrible.
Yes.
that's exactly the right way to put it. Gergoni.
I wasn't expecting terrible.
Terrible in like the biblical sense.
Okay.
Inspires
Is that better?
It inspires terror. Inspires terror.
All right.
For better or for worse.
But
You'd be
so-
terrified how much you love their relationship.
So he talked
go.
about talking with Diana about getting in, and then we had Joel Jones on the show.
Yeah, I heard that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
She's great.
Oh, she's
really
fantastic.
fun. Yeah.
But once again, Diana Schutz was sort of the reason she got in. We had Trevor Dodge, who teaches at CCC.
Was the reason that Joel got into comics in the first place?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she got Joel's foot in the door.
You know, I can't tell you the amount of times over the past couple of cons I've been to that I hear the same thing about my dad. Apparently, he like got everyone into comics, and I hear it so much. Like people who
Just sick of it at this point.
You know, it's always a different story, and it is charming and heartwarming because the man has become kind of a bitter old fruit, you know, and just knowing that at one point he was so, and he still is willing to give tons of people a chance in comics. I mean, he gave Francesco, who did Discovery here, Francesco his first chance in comics, mainstream comics, and a lot of people he's given them sort of their first gig, fought for them, you know, attached to the project.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, I think everyone. It seems like everybody has kind of a, if not Matt or Diana, somebody. It seems like you can trace it back to somebody who took a chance on them or something.
Also, in my family, Bob Schreck. Who
Yes.
is-
He comes up as well.
That's the other thing. Yeah, Bob Schreck.
Yep.
These are just, of course, family members to you, and to us,
Yes.
they're
Yes.
people whose names I've seen on everything.
They're at every Christmas. But they, you know,
That's so interesting.
it's just the family I grew up in.
That's kind of what Morgan talked about. He said, like, going to your house for Thanksgiving is like a mini comic convention, sort of. I don't know if he said that.
Maybe
I
like
might
a mini
be.
comics after party.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
With the creatives. Yeah.
So I'm assuming you sort of grew up with comics then, because we always like to ask people what their origin stories as fans of comics.
Right, sure. And I imagine a lot of people, you know, they weren't necessarily decided on that as a serious interest or even a career path until later in life when they were able to recognize what a free medium it is and such. But for me, it was like always. I mean, since I could walk, just always wanted to do comics. I mean, you remember when you did those little like what I want to be when I grow up things, and mine was always comic book artist, comic book writer.
Yeah, my dream of paleontologist really hasn't gone much of anywhere.
Paleontologist.
Look, I knew how to use that word at a very young age. It shocked a lot of teachers. I'm like, what? I get to dig up dinosaur bones. I don't know what you're questioning.
Jurassic Park?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I maybe watched Jurassic Park at a very formative age.
Yes.
Be like, I want to be the guy at the beginning who's brushing away the dirt on the bones.
Not the guy who's being chased by
No, God, no, that's dangerous.
dangerous.
I think I wanted to be an archaeologist for similar reasons involving Indiana Jones.
You wanted the hat
Jones.
and the whip.
Yeah, then I found out there was a lot less Nazi fighting in actual archaeology.
I actually went through a similar sort of creative pause with the comics, and I wanted to do a similar thing, go into photojournalism. Maybe for the same reasons. I wanted to like travel the world and see like exotic shit, but ultimately. Comics again, such a good medium, such a great medium.
Oh, yeah.
To tell a story, to show that you know architecture and people, and it's like it's kind of all art forms packed into one.
I think we talked about that. Well, we had Trevor Dodge, who teaches at CCC. We had him on the show, and that's what he was talking about. He said it's sort of like this thing.
The bastard child of all the other mediums,
Right.
I think is the phrase he used.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
good.
I was trying to remember. And that is something that's amazing about it. Is it's got this visual component, it's got this written component.
But the way the two can blend together in terms of like how the art can make you feel and the story that goes along with it can make you think.
Right.
It's such an evocative art form that's really open to whatever you want to do with it.
Whatever you want, yeah, it's so true. You can do whatever kind of story that you want to tell through comics, and I think that you're more limited with like music and film.
Sure, yeah.
I know some friends of ours who are getting into music and film who would probably argue otherwise, but screw those guys.
Well, I mean,
They
it's
have total
John.
freedom.
it's tough. You need a lot of people to make a movie.
That is also true.
Yeah.
That's I think what's attractive to comics to me, and why I ultimately decided to do that as a career choice, is the tiny amount of people involved really allows your work to shine. You know, you have a chance to show what you're good at and not be sort of overshadowed by all the people involved in the project.
Right, and it doesn't. You don't get diluted as you move through the different,
Right.
the chains of.
I think there are still like pieces of that though. Like in the same way that a movie can be ruined by a shitty editor, I feel like a comic book can be ruined by a shitty editor or like somebody at the top who's trying to force through decisions. That's not necessarily true on more independent books, but I think on like it's less true these days, but I think it was very true at a time in both DC and Marvel.
Sure.
Like you read a bunch of shit from the 90s and it's just like, why does everyone have so many pockets?
I think that's regarding final production though, but when it comes to the actual creation of the product, the story or whatever, it's still just like two guys. It always has been
Yeah.
2, 3, 4 guys. It's and that's I think what's so great about comics, just that.
Well, fantastic. And I mean, obviously, growing up with Matt Wagner as well, I mean, he's a guy who does it all,
Right,
like we were talking
yeah.
about.
And at one point even coloring himself.
Oh,
Until
yeah.
he spat out his
Wow.
own colorist.
He spat out his own colorist.
He made one.
That was his long-term plan in conceiving
Maybe.
a child.
I just love the idea of him holding
Maybe.
you as an infant going, one day you will color
one
my
day."
books, so I don't have to do it myself.
Do you have?
There's some truth to that.
That's great. Do you have early memories of like what your first kind of comics exposure was? What you were reading? What?
Yeah, we'd like to ask people, like, what's the first comic that really kind of clicked with you that got you into the medium? Do you remember something specific?
When I really go, when I really go back, it's a lot of anime. Some of the first stuff that both Morgan and I got very into were Judd Winnick books, Frumpy the Clown and Barry Ween.
Okay.
Because they were funny. They weren't as serious and spandexy. We were always kind of turned off from spandex in general. We just kind of thought it was silly from a young age because it was. Maybe it's because we were so oversaturated with it. We had it all around us, and going to cons from such an early age, I just saw so many different characters that were all the same. They're just all a guy in a cape with powers, and so eventually, I just kind of. And very quickly, I just got sick of that. So we wanted stories that were different at the same time, we had like a soap opera obsession with animes. Dragon Ball Z, mainly Dragon Ball. I still have all of my graphic novels of Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z.
I really want to get the collected, like they have the new Dragon Ball Z
Right.
colored ones.
Yeah,
Oh, they're so
my
gorgeous.
roommate started collecting
Oh,
those.
they're so gorgeous.
Yeah.
I just started picking up most of the original like Gundam ones that have been like
Oh, nice.
watercolored.
Yep.
They look so nice.
That was another one I was obsessed with when I was little. Big time. Yep.
Oh, man,
Big
when-
robots.
When Gundam Wing first came out in America, I was like, "What is this magical thing with
Yeah.
giant robots?"
Yes.
Go on, Toonami.
Well, and it's such a crazy, especially like Gundam Wing. The story is so crazy and weird.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
the characters are so outlandishly anime. It starts off with this like high school drama thing, and
But then it turns out he's a terrorist
Yeah,
and like
it's
working
so
for some
weird.
weird of like space terrorism
right.
organization. and-
As you do.
when you have giant robots.
Yeah.
involved. Yeah.
That old story, right?
I could never decide if the Earth sphere was the good guys or not. I didn't know what was going on.
I couldn't figure out. Much. I like the big robots.
Right.
I knew that. I knew I liked the big. And drawing them was kind of fun because they had a certain human-like anatomy to them, even though they're all mechanical and stuff. You could almost figure out how to draw one just by constructing a human figure. So that was always, I think.
So, what do you think it was about the manga and the anime that spoke to you in a way that maybe some of the more Western stuff didn't?
I have thought about that a lot recently, actually. And I think a lot of it comes from the effectiveness of certain storytelling elements, especially in the televised, like animated version of Dragon Ball Z or other animation shows. Their techniques that they use, like shortcuts that they use to tell certain moments, like for example, a character flying high speed directly at us, is defined by just a bunch of dash lines at the
So
corners.
many speed lines.
Just a bunch of speed lines, and we totally understand what's going on. It doesn't need to be animated. a
Also, the
bunch of
whooshing
different
sound.
ways. Whoosh helps. Whoosh. Yep.
It definitely seems like that's even been now adopted by a lot of Western animation.
Right. Yes.
Because you're right. I mean, the effectiveness of that, I see that in everything now.
Yeah. It's extremely effective. I mean, if you can tell that moment easily. I remember this one episode of Dragon Ball Z that was so effective, and they had to do nothing for this. It was a fight between two characters towards the end when they were just absurdly powerful, and this is when the show like really went off the rail. But
Some of the Majin Buu stuff.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
And they're fighting up in the sky, and all they're doing, they have a painted background. It's like weird grassy looking tree things.
Always
lollipop
weird, like
trees.
giant plateaus in the background. For some reason.
Grassy plateaus
Yeah.
and lollipop trees everywhere. And it was one of those backgrounds, and they were fighting in the sky, and they were flying so fast and hitting each other so fast that all they did to animate it were a few explosion-looking.
It's like a speed line followed by like a weird pop.
A pop,
Right
yeah.
as they're like hitting each other.
Yep.
And it's just like, that's how fast they're moving. We don't even have to animate their limbs.
We don't have to see. We don't even have to see the characters, and they would spin the camera too. So just to add more, like, whoa, it's crazy. Everyone's punching each other in the air, and it works. It totally works. Like 20 minutes of that shit, and we ate it up. We're like, oh yeah, they're killing each other.
That quickly
right
followed by episodes of 20 minutes long of them just going, ah!
now. Yeah,
It's like,
flexing.
ugh.
Just
That show
flexing.
had some filler issues.
Oh yeah.
Going back and
yeah.
rewatching that recently, I'm like, ooh, wow, I sat through all of this.
No, and it's crazy. They got away with a lot of the time at the beginning of the episode showing like 10 minutes of the previous episode, right? Like cut into the beginning, but edited slightly different, so you wouldn't think they just straight played to you 10 minutes of the last episode.
It's impressive.
It's
It's impressive what they were able to get away with.
Yeah. Well, and I think maybe that's what it was so attractive to us. We were duped.
Yeah.
We were duped by anime and the storytelling tricks of anime. I think that's what attracted to that early on. I did read a lot of Western stuff early.
What kind of stuff was influential on you?
A lot of the stuff was produced by peers and friends of my father because he had it lying around
Right.
and they were around and it was given to me. Tim Sale, a lot of Tim Sale stuff.
Yeah,
I've
we're
known
big
him
Tim
since I
Sale
was very
fans
little.
on here.
Oh, he's great. He's a great guy.
He's so cool.
And his work is amazing. Like it's so
yeah.
stylistic and cool.
No, I mean, we've talked about this. People like Tim Sale, when you can just instantly identify a piece of art by them,
Oh, yeah,
it's always
yeah,
impressive.
yeah.
I mean, I think your dad actually has that as well. It's a very
Oh, yeah.
distinctive style.
He does. It's clean. It's easy.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't overthink it.
Right. Yeah.
Complimenting your father on the podcast.
Yeah, he knows what he's doing.
It seems so. I mean, he's been fairly successful, I would say.
Fairly successful, yes.
So
Put it that way.
Tim Sale stuff. Anything else that really sticks out at you? And because we're big Tim Sale fans, any specific Tim Sale stuff you remember reading? Like
all of the color ones, the stuff with Jeff Loeb, and even over into the DCU, the Superman one, for
Superman
all
for
seasons,
all seasons,
which is gorgeous.
I just sat down and read that for the first time
it's
recently.
so good.
So good, yeah.
It's a good one.
Like
It's
Norman
more of a
Rockwell.
Very Rockwell.
Yeah.
Good call on that one. It's a very quiet piece, very small town vibe.
Yeah, it really fits that character. I mean, there's something kind of old-timey and antiquated about Superman a little bit, and to see that represented that way. And I just love the way Tim Sale draws Superman and that.
Like a giant baby.
Yeah. But I've heard him talk about like that idea of like this is a Midwest corn-fed farmer is what he looks like.
I agree.
Yeah.
I don't like my Superman to have rippling abs. It doesn't make any sense. Superman would only get those if he did a bunch of crunches. And why would Superman do crunches?
He doesn't
why
have
would he
to.
waste his time?
Yeah.
He doesn't have to.
So the Tim Sale stuff. Were there other artists or writers as well who?
A big influence on us, and this is true meld of the East and West, is Stan Sakai's work, Usagi Yojimbo.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
He's amazing. And what an amazing guy. He couldn't be more nice and just humble. Like, he doesn't even think he's that great, He just thinks he's making the story about a bunny. And
He's only produced so much work that if you dropped it on someone, it would kill them.
seriously, it takes up a whole shelf at my
Right.
house. All my Usagi's.
I've been hesitant to start like collecting the big bulky omnibuses of them because I would literally have to empty a shelf to fit it all in.
Those are the best way to do it, though.
Oh, no,
I
it
mean,
is.
They lighten the load a little bit because, like, I have all of the graphic novels and most of them are hardcover, and it just bulks up big time.
So you said you always sort of had an idea that this would be your career, something in comics. At what point did you actively start pursuing that, and how did you go? I mean, I'm assuming you have a lot of connections or whatever.
Right,
I mean,
right.
those probably helped, I would imagine.
It
I mean,
was
actually, I was going to say, I mean, I could imagine that being both helpful and potentially a detriment to some extent.
there's always this sort of like potential gap, like you're not quite reaching it, and I'll always feel like I'm living in my father's shadow to some extent. Carving my own path is definitely hard when I'm given all these opportunities and such.
Right.
It's so easy to just keep taking work where I have it.
Sure.
So really what I'm trying to do is get my foot in the door and get connections and ultimately move on to write and produce my own stuff.
Very cool. So what was the first thing that you worked on? What was your first sort of credit in the comics world?
Oh gosh, I colored an issue of the Fish Police,
The Fish Police.
which is
Now,
like
do they police fish or are they fish that are police?
the latter.
Okay.
I am Donovan. Do you know this?
I haven't read The Fish Police. Sorry to say. Sounds right up my alley, though.
Who
after
publishes
that
the Fish Police?
That's Dark Horse.
That's Dark Horse. Okay, that sounds weird enough for Dark Horse.
Fish Police, I think, even goes back to the old Kamiko days.
Okay.
Wow.
Which is ancient.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And the one that I colored was a reprint of an old Fish Police that was like a 10-year anniversary Fish Police. Okay. It's going to get really obscure. Up in here.
Anniversary fish police.
Anniversary Fish Police. Not just any anniversary Fish Police. It was Fish Police BC.
Okay.
Okay, so it was like tyrannical, like dinosaurs mixed with fish underwater.
Yeah.
And they
they
were
were-
also police.
They're also police.
So it's old enough in time that they're dinosaurs, but still modern enough to where they have a police force.
And yeah, well, and it's all like
Somebody had to enforce the law.
it's all dinosaurs that we're familiar with above ground, but made into like fish versions of them, like a T-Rex fish.
So screw the Mosasaurus, the
Right,
biggest
the-
killer of the sea.
The actual dinosaurs that existed in the water.
Yeah. Somebody's got to put the cuffs on a mosasaurus.
They had to make it recognizable for kids or something.
Yeah.
No, I
you
can
know?
appreciate that.
Yeah.
It would have led me to believe that there were dinosaur fish, though, and then finding out later that there weren't might be a little bit of a letdown.
Oh, such a letdown.
How many
Oh, man,
children's
what a disappointment.
how many like childhoods do you think you ruined with that when kids were like, and not to put the pressure on you, but like kids finding out,
He didn't
wait a
create
second.
the fish police,
Hey,
Donovan.
I'm just saying you had a
just
big part
colored
in
it.
kids. I'm sure a lot of kids picked up 10-year anniversaries of the Fish Police, BC.
I sincerely doubt.
Yeah.
a lot.
Every kid's got
And
that.
and you're not even remorseful. All right.
They
No, that's
feel
actually-
no remorse under the waves.
No,
Donovan.
actually, that sounds awesome. I would totally pick that up.
It was
Complete 180
really,
from Donovan.
primitive for me. It was the first time I colored something digitally.
Mm-hmm.
It certainly wasn't the first time I worked on a comic book medium. Like I've drawn
Mm-hmm.
and painted and done all kinds of stuff comic book related since I could walk and talk. I've just always been interested in this.
Mm.
But the first time I got paid was that fish.
Right,
police.
right. Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
important part.
The money.
And then
Or at least
and
that's what my bill collectors tell me.
they're like, Mike, you need to get paid.
Why do you think I have a job lifting heavy boxes?
So did the fish police then lead to something else, or
It did.
okay?
Thank
Which
God.
You didn't stop there? I thought we were just interviewing about Fish Police.
all we've read is fish police. So
Then
None of us have ever heard.
Yeah,
or
we're
read
gonna we're gonna
Fish
cut that
Police.
part out.
I didn't say these bits make sense. So what did fish police lead to?
The Rocketeer was my
Oh, The
But
Rocketeer.
it was a short. It was a Rocketeer short.
All right. It's more
very
recognizable than fish police, though. So
Certainly, yeah. And then very shortly after was a Sherlock Holmes run through Dynamite that was written by Leah Moore, Alan Moore's
Yes.
daughter.
we always talk about Alan Moore in here, and I think there was an episode where we talked about the fact that he has a daughter.
Yeah.
And just
I think
what,
episode
I
one.
think she's great.
Yeah, what we have a weird relationship with Alan Moore on this show where we're we're not quite sure how to feel
Look,
about
we
him.
can't get over the fact that he's a spooky sorcerer.
but also does amazing work.
Yeah.
My
From
dad
time to
has a
time.
great story about Alan Moore. I don't know if I have the storytelling prowess to even.
Oh, man.
relay it.
But you
One day.
worked with Leah Moore.
Leah and her husband.
So-
They co-wrote the Sherlock Holmes thing that I colored. And it was my first long run. It was 5 issues. I had deadlines. It was a monthly thing, and it really teaches you a lot about like comics and production. Because I mean, this medium is not gallery art. We're not
Right.
trying to paint the perfect picture.
Yeah.
We're trying to tell a story, and we're trying to get it to you in a pretty steady fashion so that you feel entertained. I mean, it's all about the stories. The art definitely helps and is a big part of it. But ultimately, it's the aesthetic of the story experience. You know?
Right. Yeah. So we talked a bit with Morgan about this, but I want to talk to you about as well the sort of the like where you come in as a colorist and what kind of direction you get, or I mean, because Morgan, we were all really surprised here. Like Morgan's kind of like, you just kind of color it. I mean, I don't know how much.
That's all he had to say about the matter.
No, but I mean,
It was that in 2 hours of
But it was-
silence.
You bust out the crayons
Yeah.
and just go for it.
You just-
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever, just keep it inside the lines. No, but the idea that there's not a ton of direction towards you, like this needs to be read, that needs to
It's
be
not a color by numbers.
right. And I figured it was more complicated than that, but I guess I was surprised
if I got
at the
instructions
freedom.
that specific, my job would be unnecessary.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Like, it's the same with the artist. If he were told the angle of every panel, the placement of every character to
Sure.
a T, his job would be pointless. The writer would draw it if he knew how to draw that well.
Right, right.
So at a certain point, the artist even, who has some kind of, like, final look in mind for the art that he's making, at a certain point, even he has to throw it off to the colorist for creative freedom to just do what he does best.
Yeah.
I mean, it's my job. I do it well. So let me do it. That's how the best coloring works, in my opinion. Also, you got to work really closely with your artist. Email back and forth. On the Spirit, I work with my close friend, one of my best friends, actually. I got him the job on the book. So working with him and with Pop is like a dream. It's a blessing. It's honestly the easiest, the most cohesive project because, from the moment we wake up to when we go to bed, we have a conversation going, a Facebook conversation. It's just all three of us, and we're just chatting all day about the project.
Yeah, I've got to imagine that's going to be pretty easy when it's your dad or, like you said, your best friend. When you can
Right.
just be like, Hey, Dad, what do you think about? I'm going to sound really ignorant. What do you think about red for this or whatever? You know,
That's how it goes.
is it how it goes?
I'm like, okay, so I'm gonna go with this kind of hue for this. Well, for example, the finale of the second issue.
Spoilers. Sure.
Has a rather romantic moment.
Okay.
Oh dear.
And so I used a bunch of rosy hues. You know, I made it really a lot of violets. I made it really
I do like
soft
violence.
and easy.
Oh, violets.
Yeah.
The flowers.
Yeah,
You got that problem where you keep inserting the other word.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Keep going. Just ignore him.
That was good. Yeah, and you know, the ability to talk with and to meet with an artist who works locally is huge. Like I've worked with artists that were across the coast for Dynamite and for other publishers, and you just don't get as much synergy. Talking with Dan is the best. You know, I tell him what I'm going to do. He's not necessarily argumentative or even. He hardly ever turns me down, actually, with an idea. I'm like, I'm going to do this. He's like, that sounds great. He's very supportive. I'm actually way more critical of him when I see something I don't like of what he's drawn. I'm like, you should change that before you show it to Pop. Because they meet weekly and go over it.
Sure, yeah.
Pop reviews his stuff. They do. First he reviews the thumbnails, then he reviews the pencils, then he reviews the inks. And when that's all done, then Dan throws it off to me to color.
Yeah.
That's cool. And it's cool. Like, we talked with Joelle, who's working with Cole and Bunn right now.
Yep.
And he's not in Portland. He's not in the area. So it's a
Right.
lot of emailing back and forth and thumbnails. And she said that there's this kind of awkward moment of, like, you send this email and you know the person's read it, but they don't respond for a day or two. And it's like, you know, you're not thinking, like, what's wrong with it? What's going on? So it feels like what you're saying is there's a much more instant sort of reaction. And,
Yes.
and obviously in this case, a very honest reaction of, like, well, I like this, or no, I don't care for this at all.
Right.
Which I would feel like is refreshing. Maybe it's not.
No, it is. It works really well. The instant feedback, and I'll tell you, with Facebook, there's no chance for that that
It
email
has the,
bullshit.
Like, has seen
it
by.
has the
yeah.
seen
Right,
by.
right, right,
yeah,
right,
yeah.
right.
So I know when those guys have seen my what I wrote to them.
Fuck you, Facebook. God damn it.
I mean,
Always making it hard to go stealth mode.
and I totally understand what you mean. Like, I'll send off a image to Pop, and it'll say seen by. And he won't respond for a little bit, and I know that he's mulling it over. Because if he likes it immediately, terrific, move on. You know, like he's an efficient guy, and he just wants to get the story done, and he wants to move on to the next issue because there's always a next issue, always. You know.
So you talked about you did these like the Sherlock Holmes run stuff. When was the first time you worked with your dad on something?
That was the Rocketeer thing.
That was
After the
yeah, that was him.
Yep,
Okay,
yep. He wrote it, and Eric Canetti drew it. It was awesome. He's got some really good work.
yeah, and then but I mean, at a certain point, obviously, you two have sort of formed a fairly, I mean, completely ongoing partnership.
It began with me coloring his covers. He does a lot of these little variant covers, you know,
Yeah.
guest covers. Everyone in the industry does these.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I always see the Matt
yeah.
Wagner variant or whatever.
Right, yeah, exactly. And I started coloring his covers because he just thought it'd be easier. He was seeing the quality of the work that I was doing, and he's impressed by it. He thought he'd give me a chance. One of the first ones that I did for him was actually on a new Watchmen.
Oh,
The after or before Watchmen?
before Watchmen.
Before Watchmen, yeah, before Watchmen cover for the Moloch
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
version.
Yeah.
And there was a Moloch cover that Pop had drawn, and he wanted me to color it. And if I do say so myself, I fucking banged it out. And
That's great.
added these cool magic effects around his hands, so it looked like he was doing a cool gesture magically with his hands. And
Oh, right. Moloch the Magician. That was the guy that died of cancer at the beginning of the book.
yes,
Right.
Yeah, I got it.
yes, totally
I
forgettable.
was like, who is that character?
Oh, they
right.
really
Forgetful.
reached with that before Watchmen thing though. They had before everybody. They
did.
I think I mentioned before the dollar bill story and stuff like that, where you're like,
Wow.
Most memorable.
okay, yeah, wow. I guess everybody's got an origin in this.
I mean, everyone's got to have an origin, right?
I suppose, yeah.
They come
I've
from somewhere.
Never really thought about where Moloch came from, but I guess now that can be answered.
Yes. I didn't even read the issue, but
That's all right. I don't know how many people did, but
the cover.
everybody did what I did, which is everybody read where Rorschach came from. But
Everyone read the Rorschach one, the comedian one,
Yeah, those
and
are-
maybe the Silk Spectre one.
maybe I only read the Rorschach and the comedian.
There you have it, everybody. Honest confession from John Campbell. He didn't read any of the other ones.
I don't really
Now you know.
don't know how much of a confession though. It's not like I said I haven't read Watchmen. You know,
People
or whatever.
are
Yeah.
shocked.
Upset.
People are
Upset.
Yeah, we're gonna get a lot of
First,
emails
they
for
find
this.
out there's not fish dinosaurs. Then they find out their favorite comic book podcast host
Oh, no.
didn't read the other
Oh, no.
before Watchmen stuff.
Oh, I'm your favorite comic book podcast host. I think you might have some other issues though.
And you just told them they have issues. All right, strike three.
That's-
no listership after this podcast.
Yeah, you're gonna watch our metrics just fall. Everything's going down.
Yep.
Let's see. You've worked on we have some of your work in front of us.
Indeed.
Yeah. So you did Shadow Year One, which your dad wrote. Did he draw that as well?
He did not. The artist on that was Wilfredo Torres, and the cover artist was Chris Samney. And we were really lucky to get Samney.
Mm-hmm.
He was up for, or he won Best Cover Artist the year we did this.
Mm-hmm. I have read that. It's a beautiful book. It's really, really nice. You guys seem to have. This is through Dynamite.
It is. Yep.
Through Dynamite, it seems like you. Maybe it's your dad or whatever, but seem to be drawn to these older sort of pulp heroes.
He's got almost an obsession, I think.
It
with
seems like that.
Yeah, with these older, and it's crazy because his house is just filled with this shit. It's like all these old pulp magazines and Little Big books. You guys know what those are?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Little square thing, but they're
Yeah,
very thick.
I believe I have one for each of the original Star Wars movies.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
They were almost sort of the beginnings of something like a graphic novel.
Yeah,
we go back
yeah.
into the 30s and stuff.
Well, because they had a lot of material, but they were pint-sized.
Right.
You know? So you could carry them around.
But yeah, so do you then? Is there do you look at those and go, we want to capture some of that feeling?
You know, it's a generation I didn't grow up in. It's a generation he didn't even grow up in.
I was going to say, I don't think your dad was old enough
that's
to be.
what's so strange about it. But he can connect a little bit more than I can. For me, it's really foreign. So when I color, I am trying to like evoke an era that I really don't know anything about.
I think we're seeing a lot of that these days. These nostalgia for eras that we have almost no connection to.
Dynamite has
Yeah.
almost made an entire business out of it. Really,
They
it seems
have.
like.
I was going to say that earlier. Yeah, you know, Pop has an obsession with the characters that pretty much Dynamite owns all the rights to. They've nabbed up all the pulps. They got the Shadow, they got the Green Hornet, they
Yeah.
got the Spirit, they got Lone Ranger, Zorro. They need Dick Tracy.
They've got yes, they do. How do they not have Dick Tracy? It seems like
Who
they
has
should.
Dick Tracy?
They have Doc Savage. They
Yeah.
have the Phantom.
Flash Gordon. I
Flash
know they've
Gordon.
got. Yeah,
I mean, the
all these
list goes
guys from
on
like the 30s and stuff. Yeah.
the Spider, another one.
yeah. And then what I like is that they're like turning them into like Avengers now, almost. You know, where they're like
Yeah.
they're building teams.
Yeah,
of
well,
Justice
it's
Incorporated and stuff.
Masks. is
Yeah,
what that one's
masks.
called,
Yeah.
Alex Ross actually did a one shot of that. A one issue where he painted all the interiors for masks, and that was really cool looking. Very cool looking.
And then Alex Ross also did the Project Superpowers thing
Yep.
with them as well, which was a
Yep.
ton of old timey characters.
Yeah,
old
that's
timey
what
superheroes.
Morgan's working on that.
Yeah. It's just interesting because, I mean, to talk to somebody like you or whatever, I mean, did you have, I mean, you grew up with your dad obsessed with this stuff. Were you familiar with the Shadow and all this kind of stuff?
The pulps, you know, I have a love for them in a certain sense because I have a love for modern homages to pulp. Like everything that Quentin Tarantino does
Absolutely.
is homage directly from these old pulps, you know? And I do like a lot of that old stuff. I like, you know, Philip Marlowe and all that Golden Age.
The
goodness.
noir sort of
The noir.
hard-boiled
yeah.
kind of stuff. Well, it seems like there was also, like, I think we've talked about this on the show a bit before, but like when we were kids, there was kind of an obsession with it for a little while in the 90s.
Yeah.
That like post Indiana Jones into like, and they made like a Shadow movie and a
They did make
Phantom
a Shadow
movie.
Yep.
Uh,
the Phantom movie I actually really like.
Yeah, the Phantom
Me
movie's
too.
awesome.
I'm a huge fan of that movie.
But and a Dick Tracy movie and all the stuff like the
Yeah, the Dick Tracy one. The Phantom one stands out for me. I remember seeing that as a kid, and we all got the rings. In the
I was going to say
theater.
that
Yeah.
ring is
That
the.
ring
Billy
made it as
Zane?
a
Billy
kid.
Zane, yeah.
Zane is the
Billy Zane is the Phantom.
It's great because it's
Like giant purple condom suit.
yes.
Yeah.
It's like a Charlie onesie green outfit with purple. And you know what he is? He's basically Batman meets Tarzan.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely
He's like
is.
a jungle vigilante. It's
Yeah.
like the strangest combo. Like it shouldn't work because vigilantes blend into the shadows, and the jungle's very bright.
And then he chooses purple. Like it's not
purple,
green and
Yeah.
brown. He's not wearing coconuts. Like
Right,
he's
right.
Well, you know why though? Because in the old comics, the purple, same with like blue for the spirit, they didn't have when they colored those old comics. They didn't have a way to do black because they didn't use K value, ketone. It was just CMY or RGB. It was a very limited.
Yeah.
And you couldn't add any ketones, so you couldn't make it dark. You had to just mix colors to create saturated darkness areas. And so the best you could do was come up with like a very saturated blue or purple, and then add that to the
Hence, like the
negative
original
space.
colors of Batman and stuff.
Yes,
Oh, absolutely.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
When you think about like Superman had like black hair, but it was always kind of bluish.
Right, and the blue was just because they didn't have the right colors to make the reflective part of hair the right color, which is more like gray to white.
Which is interesting because then, like later in like mangas and animes that have been colored,
Right.
you'll see that they use that, even though they could easily turn it into a black with like
Right.
modern technology, but they choose to make it that. It's
become a style thing.
Yeah, almost. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is kind of and what the blue does too is it kind of adds a coolness to that area. If it were a dark brown or something in that space, it wouldn't quite read the same. It would read like Indian hair. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
No, you
Just
meant
things you don't necessarily think about all that much, but then once you start to like analyze, you're just like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
That's why
Think
nobody
about
pays us to color.
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
because we're just going like, oh, yeah, it looks fine to me.
Yeah, that's cool. Oh,
Look at all the colors.
That's why we host a podcast, and
get
you
paid to
actually
color
make comics. You mentioned that you're a Quentin Tarantino fan. Now, you have worked on a book that Quentin Tarantino had a hand in.
Indeed, and that was kind of cool because I never thought that my name would be printed next to
Next to
guy's name
Tarantino,
ever.
yeah.
Unless it's in a restraining order.
Now, how did that come?
Nice.
That's like we're still waiting for cease and desist letters from anyone we mentioned on the show
Pretty much.
that we will frame then.
He told us to shut up.
Yeah. But how did that come about? I mean, your dad worked with him on Django Zorro, which is just an awesome idea for a pairing to begin with.
It was Reggie Hudlin who made all that happen. Reggie is Quentin's producer on Inglourious Bastards, Django, and I think his new one, Hateful Eight.
Hateful Eight, yeah.
And Reggie had the idea, black and brown go good together. So let's bring these two together. They're both Western heroes. One's a hero of the South. One's a hero of the Western South.
Yeah.
Southwest.
Southwest is
Yeah.
occasionally.
Old California, as they always
Old
refer to it in
California.
Zorro.
And, it just makes sense that they would meet, but the timelines didn't quite match up. So
Yeah.
you have to make Zorro older, which
Right.
works, as we've seen with Anthony Hopkins in
Yeah.
Banderas in the movie.
Mask of Zorro, yeah.
Totally works when you have the passing of the torch down to a younger generation. And in our case, it was Zorro sort of training and teaching Django, who by the end of the movie, though totally badass, is still just kind of a mad dog.
Right.
He's not a careful hero. He's not a vigilante yet.
Well, everything was very personal in that movie, too. I mean, it was
Yes.
these people have my wife, and I'll kill them for
Revenge,
that. Yeah.
I believe the end of the movie is him literally blowing up an entire huge plantation with dynamite. I wouldn't call that careful.
or subtle.
Yeah.
No.
It's
But
not
it's not about subtle.
it's not a Zorro move, that's for sure.
And we see a lot of that in the book. Zorro, gives him advice on how to be more subtle and how to solve things maybe without violence, because sometimes that's the right way.
Yeah, I mean, Zorro definitely an influence on Batman.
Oh yeah, big
'cause-
time.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, like cause Zorro was always one of my favorite characters as a kid. I don't know, something about
Right
just
on.
that design,
I
the
love
black
Zorro.
costume and the sword.
Yep.
I'm also always drawn to swords. If you carry a sword, that's just awesome.
Yep.
Especially when everyone else has guns, it's just like you have to be a particular level of badass to use the sword.
But what I-
everyone's shooting
But
at you.
the era that
Definitely.
Zorro was set in, like everybody had guns, but they only had the one shot, you know. And so they had like the muskets and stuff
It's
like
true.
that. And then
It's
he had,
true.
yeah.
There were cannons.
Well,
and
and
stuff.
the whip. Anybody with a whip.
He had the whip and he
It's
had a
cool.
horse. Yeah, everything about that.
And there's always a Gatling gun that gets brought out, and it's like a special thing. Like, ooh,
Uh-oh.
they,
Yeah.
they unveil it.
They got Zorro now.
Yeah.
And the crank on the side.
Yeah. So did you work? You worked on your dad's Zorro solo stuff as well, or
I did not. No,
You did
that
not do
was
that,
a little
okay.
bit before my time.
okay? Because he did a number of Zorro books.
And that's the reason that that he was brought on to co-write this Django Zorro crossover with
Mm-hmm.
Quentin. Pop is kind of like a preeminent authority on Zorro.
Awesome. So what does that conversation go like when he tells you, by the way, I'm working with Quentin Tarantino on this thing?
That
And
was
then
crazy.
subsequently, I would like you to work on it as well.
Yeah, well, the latter part of that didn't follow. It was he told me about the project and I freaked out and I
You insisted on please.
practically insisted, you got to let me color that. And he said he would throw my name in and he did and it worked. So
Did you have any communication with Quentin Tarantino at all, or was it always
You know,
passed through?
Pop went down to meet with Quentin and they hashed out the story over 2 days at Quentin's awesome Hollywood mansion.
Sounds terrible.
I've never been more jealous. My father told me this story.
I've read some descriptions of it. It sounds pretty awesome. His house.
Ridiculous. They hashed out the story over 2 days, and then we didn't hear from Quentin until like just recently. He pretty much dipped out to do his movie, and that was it. They formed the basic plot structure of the story, but then it was essentially Pop who went about writing all the dialogue. And
No further feedback? I mean, he didn't say like, "Oh, that's cool," or no. All right, cool, fair enough.
I
He
mean,
said what he had to say.
he's a busy guy. He's got to make
true.
more westerns, apparently.
as we talked about earlier, it's hard to make a movie.
That
Takes
it
a
is.
lot of time, a lot of people.
Oh, yes,
you
it
know?
does.
Especially a Quentin Tarantino movie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. He might have a leg up on some of us in terms of
true.
being able to assemble people.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I think Quentin.
Sam Jackson to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, is there? You talked about wanting to sort of branch out on your own. Have you? What have you done? Sort of. I mean, we talked about your beginnings. Have you done other stuff aside from the stuff with your father?
Like solo project stuff?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
I'm working on a story right now with my artist on the Spirit that we're going to shop around once we've produced more of it. And that was put on screeching halt by the news that he was going to draw the Spirit and that I was going to color it. And so that's been like our top priority lately.
Time out. We've got work.
But also, I mean,
Stop all the work so we can work.
pretty big time work, though. I mean, the Spirit is
Right, and
obviously-
that's the thing is lately I've pared my work back to just the one issue per month. In the past, I've done 2 issues a month or even more than that, crammed in as much work as I could. But I've pared my work back to just the one. Trying to fix up the place. Trying to fix up the house. Do some gardening work.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
We talked to Morgan a little bit about this, but how long do you say would roughly like it take, or approximately, to take you to do, like, let's just say even just a page?
You know, I get this question a lot, and the answer is that it is complicated. It varies from page to page. You know, it really does. A splash page is really easy for me. I approach splash pages with a lot of enthusiasm, and I know immediately what I'm going to do because there's one light source for a splash moment. There's one palette.
Right.
When you have multiple panels on a page, you are having to break up hues, palettes, light sources. You have to treat each moment like its own individual painting. and also treat the whole page as its own painted piece. The colors of one panel can't overwhelm another. They have to work cohesively. But similarly, they have to work on their own, like single panels by themselves. So it really depends. The answer is that it really depends. I try and do about 2 pages a day.
Okay.
That's average, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm always fascinated about just like how much time people devote to whatever aspect of work they're doing, especially in the creative realms. Like, I think it was Jerry Seinfeld who was like, you got to treat it like a job, regardless of what it is you're doing.
Right.
Like, whatever creative endeavor, you got to treat it like sit down, do your 8 hours a day or whatever.
Yeah,
what have
and
you.
Seinfeld goes to an office and writes jokes for, however long. And, yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
It's true. That's what you have to do. You got to put in the hours. And sometimes you don't necessarily feel creatively inspired to put in those hours,
Yeah.
but it doesn't fucking matter. You got to do it. You got to do the work.
Right. So I always like to ask people this and you said that a little bit before we were recording. You don't really read many comics anymore because I'm sort of fascinated by this idea. Like obviously, I think anyone who's getting into this comes in as a fan,
Right.
but then it seems like it's easy, whether it's time or whatever, to sort of lose that fan. Do you think that
The momentum, the fan
devotion, if you will?
Fanmentum.
I don't even know if
The fanmentum.
Yeah,
Maybe not
That's
devotion, but I mean
that
that
episode 1.
I was just about to say that's
like you're
Star Wars movie.
Fanmentum.
the
but
brother
like
of the Phantom.
like suddenly you're on the other
Oh.
side of the table now, and does that change the way you now read comics or?
I just don't have time.
Okay,
I want
yeah.
to be reading more comics. I hardly have time anymore. And I was warned about this, that once you start making them, you won't read them as much. And it is true.
Yeah, we've heard that from. I mean, we
everybody.
definitely. We talked to Joel about that for sure.
Literally everyone says that.
The people,
But
we
not
talked
in
to,
like everybody says that. That's boring. But it's an interesting look at like nobody said like, oh, I don't want to read him anymore, or like I'm bored by it. It's just like I'm busy and I like do this for a living, and sometimes
it's fascinating and is also quite reassuring to hear you guys tell me that.
yeah, no, it's not just you.
Yeah.
And sometimes it sounds like I like these. I probably have a bit of time, but I also just looked at a page all day today.
That's what
Right.
Joel
and
said. is-
so like absorbing another
Yeah.
medium and like doing something else feels
Yes.
more refreshing at this
I could
moment.
sit down and watch Game of Thrones or any other thing you want to like. I could be playing Batman rather than reading it.
And I think you bring up a good point there, is that another medium is refreshing when you've been involved in this medium all day. You've been thinking about panel layout. You've been thinking about how the story moves across a page and stuff. And then to go home and just like dive into comics, and sometimes I do. I don't know. It depends. I have to be kind of excited about stuff. I have to have new comics, which I can't really afford lately. But,
Join the club.
yeah, let's get real, you guys.
I can't afford it
Expensive
either, and yet
hobby.
I still have like
Yeah.
5 new trades
And
sitting
that's-
next to my
Hence
bed.
the bill paying that we mentioned earlier.
Yeah. But hey, we just want to let the listeners know that's what we do for you. We go broke to review comics on this show.
Absolutely.
I also go
definitely
to the
don't
library.
Go into the negatives
I will
in my
say,
bank account because
Brennan,
of comic books.
You are the first person to bring us comics, so you are automatically our
really?
favorite guest
Nice.
because
Cool.
we got into this to get free comics. Let's be honest
And
here.
no one's brought you.
No one has brought us any comics before.
Oh.
Snubbed. No, we're everybody we've talked to has been really exciting, and that's not something we expect of them. But this was cool to like see things, and then you're like, oh, by the way, you just hold on to this.
John,
That's
we all
cool.
know I didn't get into this for free comics. I got into it because I'm a glutton for attention.
There we
That's
go.
true. That's
Fair
true.
enough.
We've talked about that. The whole
Oh, you're a self-aware one.
the whole subtext of this show is please like us.
Even though I think that means you're not going to last very long. Because M in Casino Royale says arrogance and self-awareness seldom go hand in hand. And she's like telling Bond to lose one
I'm not
because he's going
arrogant.
to die.
I'm desperate. Please
Desperate.
like me.
Okay, desperate and self-aware. There we go. That's better. You'll be
guys,
a fine double.
we do have a
double
guest
agent.
with us as we go
right.
off on this. He's giving us a wave
I'm
as he heads
curious-
out the door.
I'm
No.
curious. You guys were just talking about this. How did you get into podcasting?
We were sitting around discussing comic books for hours at on. It's like, why don't we just record this and start releasing
much,
it?
Because
yeah.
I thought that with Morgan before. Because we just sit around and do the same thing.
Why not? Yeah, why not record it? Is sort of the thing. I mean,
As a guest we've had on before, we know that Morgan has plenty to say. And put a mic in front of him, you could just put that on the internet.
Morgan,
You'd have to put the M rating next to it, but
he gets
the Morgan rating.
He gets that,
the
yeah.
Morgan rating.
Yeah. Yeah, he comes on as a panelist talking about Batman the Animated Series.
that was a fun
Oh,
episode.
right on.
Yeah,
Which we're big fans of. I don't know.
Yeah,
was that at all
it's
formative when you were? I mean, when you were.
Absolutely. I actually just got a review recently that said that my colors and Dan's art evoke the old Bruce Timm.
Oh, man.
Batman.
Is there a
highest
higher
praise.
compliment?
Seriously, I felt great about it because I was like, man, that's totally what we're going for. Is this
Yeah.
I can see that. I mean, just flipping
vibe.
through this, I can see some of that.
Simple line
That's an
work.
ad for something else.
Effective. Yeah, they love their ads. Dynamite loves their ads.
I mean, we pretty much read trades, so like I always forget
Yeah.
that when I pick
Yep.
up an issue of something,
Yep.
I'm like, what the hell? Why am I looking at Conan?
yeah.
I want to read the Spirit.
DC's doing their ads on. DC's running ads that are like a half-page ad, so they cover.
Yeah,
up,
I
like,
saw those. Those
I
are
have
weird.
not seen any of that.
bizarre.
They'll have like half the page is the panels, like the upper half, and then the bottom half you'll have like almost like a banner ad on a website.
Yes.
It's super weird.
Because people
Bizarre.
they know people
That
are
is-
flipping through the full pages, but what they don't know is people are ignoring the banners and just getting more annoyed that they have to like.
it doesn't work like television. It's not like they're getting paid for eyes on ads.
Well, how bad is this going to get? Are we going to get like every other panel as an ad eventually? It's just like Batman runs and then buy this.
It's
thing,
gonna
and
be a
then-
Truman
Then he
Show.
lands on a
Sounds
roof.
that way.
It's going to be a Truman Show where they're going to try to seamlessly work ads into things, and it's not going to
Batman talking about laundry detergent.
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
Batman reading the new issue of Superman.
Yeah, because they're advertising other comics.
so meta.
What's he up to this month?
Yeah.
There's a Superman comic in the world.
Well,
of
Robin,
Batman?
you remember last month this happened. What's the final conclusion?
Holy Flashpoint, Batman.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm gonna swing this on one of you guys. What do you guys read?
I mean, anything I can afford.
A lot of Image books.
Image is doing fantastic.
Yeah.
Packaging. I feel like just their covers. They must have a really good design team over there too.
It seems like that.
Putting these books together in such a way that it
Well,
looks so nice on a shelf.
They feel like they're really running at being like the third company. I mean, where it's like,
Right.
you've got the big two,
Right.
but I mean, like I was just reading an article about them that was in Entertainment Weekly where they're talking about like within probably 5 years they could conceivably overtake DC in terms of sales.
That would be insane.
Totally.
Yeah, I mean they could. We're
DC's
looking at
doing horrible things right now, so I would not be surprised.
Just right now is when they've started doing the horrible things.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean,
Just continue
here-
down the bloody path.
Here and there, I mean, it is surprising. Every once in a while, you'll read a DC book. It's like, this is pretty good. I mean, there's some innovative stuff being done over there, but it's few and far between. Stuff like Gotham Academy
Yeah.
and
I like the new Aquaman
Clinic,
stuff.
She's cool.
That's a weird thing to say. Not many people say
But
that.
going to
but-
like
Say that I'm familiar.
have you read any of
New Aquaman.
the Jeff Johns Aquaman run at all?
I have not.
it's pretty good.
The first issue, the best. I think I said this on the show before. So
Yeah.
excuse me for a moment. The first issue, he basically dispels all the jokes and myths about Aquaman through like helpful narrative in the story of like there's a reporter like, so
talking to
what do
somebody,
the
"Look, I
fish
don't
tell
talk to
you?
fish,"
Yeah, it's
yeah.
like, okay, they're too stupid. I move them with my mind.
Yeah,
like,
it's a telepathic
kind
thing.
of thing.
It's not.
He flips an armored van with his trident. And then, like, dispatches burglars and jumps over a building at the end of the issue, and you're just like, okay, this is a different Aquaman. You know, this is like a real. Yeah, I mean, he feels
Tall
like.
buildings in a single bound.
Yeah, exactly. Well, because another thing is like, what is Aquaman doing here? There's no coastline. He's like, I can breathe outside the water, like stuff like that.
Yeah,
that is just
yeah,
like
yeah.
he's like kind of sarcastic and biting, but like this regal because he's king of Atlantis. I mean, it's all these elements, and then there's crazy other Black Manta. And
Oh, sure, yeah.
like
I mean, it's
other-
still an Aquaman book.
It's super cool, yeah, but it feels more like some of the Thor stuff, where it's like this fantastical world you don't understand, but you get
Right.
this regent coming in and now being like a person in our society, but also has things. I don't know. It's
Good use
super
of the word
cool.
regent.
Thank you.
No, yeah, he's like the vessel into that world. Like he's our eyes into their strangeness.
Yes, and a far superior Namor.
I don't know how much you.
How dare you, sir?
He wears
Imperious
I agree.
He
Rex.
understands how decency works in clothes.
I
He's
like
much
my
better.
underwater sociopath.
Yeah, name
Well,
more.
and the one that I like, he's got an epic beard too. I'm into that.
Oh
The
yeah,
Aquaman,
that
like
like
mid '90s, loses
harpoon
hand.
hand,
I like it when he looks
long haired.
like the Lord of the Sea.
Yeah, more like Neptune.
Well, now we're
Yeah,
gonna
he
kind
looks like
of
Poseidon. That's what I like. I want him to be.
we're
Poseidon,
gonna kind of get that now with whatever this new live
Jason
action Aquaman.
Momoa as the.
Oh yeah.
I'm not.
I mean, we've got
Khal Drogo
well, we've
as
got Khal
Aquaman.
Drogo as Aquaman now.
He was the king of the Sea of Grass. Now he's just king of the sea.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I'm not excited for that film.
Okay,
but,
join the club.
but that's a decent cast for Aquaman.
yeah, I think so.
It's gonna be a cool take, I think.
Yeah.
We'll
For
see.
what? I mean, we're not gonna get
I'm
him much
gonna go
in
with
this
Aquaman.
film.
Aquaman pun incoming. I'm not holding my breath.
All right.
Okay.
Nice.
That's something I was going to ask. It may not affect too much of the stuff you're working on. I mean, obviously you have a connection because you have a tie-in comic with Django. But is there ever a thought like, well, there's movie? Because I always hear this like, how are movies affecting the comic book world? Obviously, probably more on on the Marvel and DC stuff. But I wonder, have you come across anything like that or heard anything from people you know about like, hey, this is what's happening in the movie. Maybe we should steer the comic that way or something.
I mean, continuity stuff with Django Zorro. Pop just watched Django a bunch of times, and he knows Quentin's stuff intimately, as do I. So he was just trying to evoke Quentin, and I guess I was trying to do the same thing. Lots of blood,
Yeah, particularly with Django, there's
Western
a lot of
colors, go
globs
real
of-
Western, lots of yellows and oranges. Yeah, no, there's with comics it's great. There's no producer, barking in your ear. Don't do this, don't do that. Occasionally,
The
you'll
notes
get,
all come from the creative team who are
Yeah.
making it, not the some guy who's wearing a suit who's
Right.
off to the side of the set.
based on our polling numbers. The following things are,
and that's why their medium it still remains a little sacred compared to film because although we're starting to see a lot of that world bleed over.
yeah. That's what I'm kind of fascinated by is this kind of like almost synergistic thing that they're making. That's becoming
Yeah.
with comics and movies. They share a lot of similarities. Obviously,
Right.
it makes sense that stuff could jump back and forth between them. But
Well,
obviously,
it's
they are
easy-
different.
It's easy from a studio's mind to build a franchise around something like this.
Oh, sure.
You have the two mediums, which is double the amount of sales.
Mm-hmm.
You get your ticket sale, you get your book sale. And if everyone in America buys your ticket and your book, buys your movie and your book, that's great. And then they buy the action figure, and then they buy the video game, and then they buy the
sure.
t-shirts and the posters, and
Welcome to how the stuff is done now.
merchandising.
Well, and I feel like
Spaceballs the lunchbox. Spaceballs the breakfast cereal.
The thing that's great about that was in the 80s, and Mel Brooks is calling what happened.
Yeah,
He really nailed it.
he really
did.
does. What's so interesting though is like when you see a new big movie like the Ant-Man just came out. This is gonna date this. That's fine.
Yeah, it probably didn't just come out by the time this is coming out.
It
but
has come out by now.
Yeah.
and there's people who are like,
you can listen to us talk about
who's-
it if you go back.
Please do. If you haven't already. If you have, don't listen to it again. That was lame. But there's people who are now going into comic book shops and asking for like, what's a representation of Ant-Man? I'm sure that there are like new and current things that are going to be recommended that feel more like the cinematic universe visually and just like
We
this-
saw the same thing happen with Guardians of the Galaxy.
I was gonna
Exactly.
say, you can bet there's going to be new Ant-Man comics.
and-
There already
already
is.
are.
Yeah.
but people, because there's a common misconception that like comics and movies like are so similar because they both have visual elements that they can just kind of fall back and forth easily, which they're more streamlined than maybe prose and things. But
Yeah.
you have to wonder like where are the visuals of comics going to be in the next 10 years after the success of these movies? And people who have not read comics now saying, I want to read them, but I'm not going to get it if it's
Well, I've heard people say things like, "Well, I mean, yeah, of course, comics. It's a storyboard." It's like, well, no, it's not.
It's
Like,
not.
No, it's better than that because storyboards are all contained within the same frame
Yeah.
structure, and there's a certain design to a page layout that is ancient and beautiful, and I don't think we'll ever lose that.
No.
Like, I don't think comic art's ever going to move out of that. We are seeing the introduction of a lot of digital comics that move across the page and stuff.
the guided view kind of
The guided view, but also I mean comics where things will change within a panel.
Yeah.
instead of using 2 panels to show the same person looking one way and then another, you can use 1 panel and animate him looking one way and then the other.
We talked a bit to Joelle about that because she worked on Batman 66, which is a digital-first comic that has some of that stuff. It's very interesting. I don't know that I like it too much.
I'm not that into it myself. I feel like if you're gonna,
why not just make it a motion comic?
Why not just make a motion comic, or why not just make it an animated motion picture?
Yeah, I mean that. Way too expensive.
That's probably their answer. Something that for like
why don't you make it
my
into
entire
that
childhood that fascinated me was like when Dick Grayson would move across a page and you would see like the faded outlines of all the moves he had done, and then on the right side of the page you see like the fully realized.
Yeah.
I always was like, this is the coolest thing because you can look and see where he lands, or if you want to, you can go through and see every little move and grab he does.
Right.
But it doesn't feel. It feels like they didn't put a box around each movement, and it just kind of seamlessly carries you across the page. The new motion, guided stuff just feels cheap. It feels like, they didn't want to have to draw his body twice.
Which is interesting
so they
because
drew
it's
his
probably
face
more
twice.
expensive.
Oh, yeah, sure. Right now.
Yeah,
soon it
but
won't be.
the thing about it is, one of the things I've always loved about comics is you control the pace. Right. I mean, I think being a comic book fan may have led me into editing. Like when I edit movies, it's sort of like that. It's like, how long do I let that go before I switch to this, to that? And, I was doing that ever since I was a kid, really, by going from this panel to this panel at
and
this speed.
Yes, making your own pace with the comic because you can decide how fast the story comes at you. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then that's now they've. No, I mean it's not. It hasn't become too prevalent, but they're taking that away a little bit.
Yeah, they decide it for you.
Yeah.
Now they make the decision for you of how fast it should move from
right
here to there.
And then it does become like, well, okay, how is this not just a movie then?
And I'd like to say I love that technique, the one you were talking about.
Yeah.
The visual technique of having all the after images of a person's movement, the like after figures. I particularly love coloring those moments.
Really?
Because finding a way to color those figures where they don't stand out. They kind of like fade, but don't fade too much. You don't want them to be ghosts necessarily, but they do not. You do want them to not be as solid as your foreground guy.
Sure.
Yeah.
Pardon my ignorance for a second, but is there a term for that effect, or is there a way that the author or the writer would communicate that to a writer, or artist would? Oh, sorry. Author to a writer, writer to an artist, or an artist to a colorist that would like indicate this is what we're going to do visually, or does it just kind of happen?
For me, when I get the page, I know.
Yeah.
If there's like 10 Grendels jumping around,
sure, that makes sense.
He didn't suddenly clone himself.
Yeah, exactly.
But is there like a specific? I mean, is that like an industry standard technique, or is it just kind of up to the author's discretion?
I don't know if there's I can't say I've read enough comic book scripts to know that. I've read a number of my dad's scripts. He writes what's called a loose script in comics, which is just a brief description of the panel and then the dialogue. It reads very much like a play script or a television script.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, just for a second. Yeah. Can you see if you can get the phrase "the Donovan coin" for that effect? Just, as you're using it, be like, "Oh, do you mean we're going to do the Donovan here?" And just kind of see if you don't mind.
That can be your lasting legacy in comics.
Yeah. I don't know.
Why do they call this the Donovan?
No, you just use it casually. I've always thought it'd be cool to go in.
Who?
Here's the thing. I would love to go. Well, because you just get people to use it. I would love to go. This is a secret dream of mine.
This is the detriment of having you on panel.
Hey, it happens. I've always wanted to go into a restaurant and order something not on the menu, buy a name like, "Oh, can I have the Moby Dick?" And they're like, "What's that?" And be like, "Okay, it's cheddar cheese, bacon." You go through the thing and be like, "Okay," and then do that a couple times, and then get other people to go in and order that, and see if you can get it on the menu.
Nice. Yeah.
Wouldn't that be awesome? So you get somebody like Morgan to call it the Donovan, and your dad to call it the Donovan, and then people are like, "Now it's the Donovan."
Now it is the Donovan.
Can you have your dad call it after the host of this podcast you were on?
You don't even have to say that. I don't. If I just saw that, and they make those books about oh, here's a script from a comic book, like the back, they did that for the Definitive Watchmen or whatever. There's 96 pages of Alan Moore writing. If somewhere in there it was the comedian walks across the page, the Donovan, right? Using that term, I would lose my mind.
Donovan.
Because what are the chances that was named after some other Donovan?
Donovan, I don't know if you're allowed.
Your end goal is that?
Yeah. That's all I want.
To have the after images.
Because then I could shake somebody's hand like Dana Schutz and be like, "Hi, I'm Donovan," and be like, not the Donovan.
Are you the Donovan?
In fact, I am. Fun fact.
Just need me fade into the background.
I mean, there's absolutely no pressure. No pressure on that. Just something to think about.
Donovan, I don't know if we're going to let you talk to guests anymore.
That's fine.
That
I'm surprised you let me talk this much.
That went on for a while, actually.
Hey, free media.
just like the Donovan.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Just like the Donovan.
Goes on for a while.
So you talked a little bit about you were developing something with the artist of this. Is writing something you do or want to do in some?
Yeah, I can't say that I've written very much dialogue, but I am familiar with plot structure, maybe overly.
Okay.
And
That whole bell curve.
Yeah. And pacing. So, like I said, the project that I'm writing with Dan, who's my artist on The Spirit, that one is going to be title by Dan and Brennan because we're trying to just no last names. Because we're trying to really get a creative synergy going where we figure out which parts we're best at. I think with him it's dialogue. He's very snappy. He'd be great to have on this show.
We'd love to have him.
He's very quick and witty. He's good with dialogue, and I feel like I'm good with plot structure and pacing.
He's the Kasdan to your Lucas.
There you go. Had to bring him on board.
The other thing about this show, it always comes back to Star Wars.
If I'm involved, yes.
It will always go back to Star Wars.
I'm okay with that.
But let's talk a bit about plot structure. I just want, is there a specific kind of plot structure you feel like is specific to comics in a way that's maybe different than? I don't know. I don't even know if you can answer this because I don't know how much about.
Well,
do you feel it's different than like movies and things like that, or TV, or?
I feel like with the kind of comics that I work on that are published monthly, it's a lot more akin to a television series.
Yeah.
You're getting a monthly or weekly installment of this piece, this chapter of the story. And the whole book is probably a season.
Yeah.
It's a run of issues. It's a run of, for The Spirit currently, it's a 12-issue run. Just like 12 episodes of a show.
Makes sense.
When it's done, it's published into a book. I guess that's season 1.
Yeah.
And if it gets renewed again and we keep going, they make a second graphic novel. That's season 2. I guess.
Well, in the case of The Shadow, it literally says year 1. I mean, I know that's the plot of the thing, but I think Marvel was publishing books as seasons for a while.
There was like Hulk season 1, Fantastic Four season 1. That was a thing for a little while.
They went back into the origins, and they were season 1.
But I think when it comes to like plot structure in comic books, it really comes down to like pacing, depending on how the book is released. Like you were saying,
Right?
Like if it is a monthly thing, it probably is going to be paced a little bit more like a TV show. If it's like a singular graphic novel, it might be paced a little bit more like a movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
If it's like a 12-issue miniseries, then it might be paced a little bit more like that, where it's a bit more like less issue to issue and more like one long cohesive story.
Yeah, I guess what I'm
yes.
wondering is do you have like the 3-act structure or whatever? I mean,
I think with The Spirit, you'd find it's really like a television show in that each episode has to be its own contained narrative. It has to feel whole. As a fan and a reader, you have to feel like by the end of that issue, you've gotten your money's worth because they are still sold as issues. And
Right.
It's still like however many, $4 or $5 or whatever for an issue.
Back in my day, when
Right.
it was only $2 an issue.
it is amazing.
cents. Like,
Yeah, it's true. I mean, but I mean,
little.
yeah, exactly. But I mean, yeah, it's
Can't
even
imagine.
I know. It's crazy.
even just us, the idea that's gone from 2 to 4 is
know.
insane.
The fact that they're charging that price for the digital ones is what chafes my.
I think this has come up on the show before, but
has.
I don't understand that at all. It's so much cheaper to get a print subscription than a digital
No,
subscription.
who was it who said it? But they're absolutely right. Ads. It's all about ad space. Because they don't have the ads in the digital versions, they're not making any ad revenue on those ones, so they have to charge.
I can understand it, but it can still piss me off.
Yeah, sure.
It all makes sense if you trace the money, though. Right?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Like, when you
Some-
really look at it.
Somebody's making money somewhere.
I think you'd find with The Spirit, especially, every issue is its own thing, especially because the way that we're structuring it, each issue, at least in the first half of our arc, features an old villain. So in the second one, you'll see it's Carrion, who was. You're familiar with Carrion?
Yeah, he pops up from time to time.
Yep, and he's got a vulture on his shoulder.
Yep.
I'm completely unfamiliar with the spirit, so
I think between
I
the three
was
of us,
too.
I think between the three of us, there's like a range of completely unfamiliar. I'm kind of familiar. Donovan, you're pretty familiar with the spirit.
Yeah, but don't say that, because then just don't build me up like that.
As the guy who's pretty
there's gonna be
familiar with
one
the spirit, you can't
nerd who
handle that
listens to this and
title.
Goes, well,
Actually, yeah.
No, I've read quite a bit of Spirit.
Yeah.
The Spirit. We call him Spirit. It's
So
like
did you-
more colloquial that way.
I'm assuming though you went back and sort of delved into
Oh,
the
Denny.
Eisner stuff.
Yeah, I've been looking through some of that old stuff. I used to read some Eisner, but I was more influenced by Eisner's graphic novels, Contract with God,
Yeah.
and some of the later ones.
Oh, those are so good, but
They are
sometimes
heavy.
so
Yeah,
difficult
yeah,
to get
yeah.
through.
They are heavy, indeed. It's very heavy.
Indeed.
But they should sell those with a box of tissues.
I agree.
Just a thought. Comic book companies.
Cool. Do you guys have anything else for Brennan specifically?
I mean, not specifically.
Okay.
I'm
Non-specifically?
non-specifically. I'm always like fascinated by. I brought this up in the Morgan episode, but the lines of communication between like the. I don't want to call like colorists and letterers the secondary guys.
This is exactly what you said to Morgan.
I know.
I think Morgan was cool with that, though. But
Yeah, but like the guys who don't necessarily get their names on the front of the books all the time.
Which your
for-
names are on
I'm-
the front of
both of
all
all
of
the
these.
books that we're looking at.
yeah,
Way
the
to go,
Grendel
prove me
Shadow.
Wrong. Okay.
But I mean, at the very
Your name's
at the very
smaller,
least,
but
it comes third, though. I mean, or fourth
Right.
technically if you count inking.
Yeah, I mean, these days you really don't see pencil or inker that much unless you're going into the more like stock artist breed from the big two. But yeah, color is probably third rung because I do a fuck ton of work. Let me tell you. Let me tell you.
No, I'm not discounting
We're not
the work you're
discounting
doing.
that. And also this is the precursor to your questions.
Yeah, like I have a tremendous
Let's
amount of
piss him
respect
off and then ask him
for
something.
The people who color and the guys who do the lettering and the
Right.
guys who are like figuring out the fonts of like just the like title page and stuff. Like there's
Yeah.
so much work that goes into comic books that not a lot of people are even thinking about.
Yeah.
But like I think about and like I'll open up that first page and go, thank you, this person, this person, this person, this person. Not just the guys who are on the front of the book. But I'm always fascinated, like, what is your experience in terms of how you're treated when you're like working with your father and stuff? Obviously that's a bit more of an intimate like experience, but when
Right.
you're just getting paid to do issue work for Dynamite or something, what is your experience in terms of how you're treated by the artists or the writers and stuff?
In some cases, I've had extremely little communication to the point where it's like they pass off all the art to me. I have no say in it. I color it. I hand it back. Done. I get a good thanks. Here's your check, sort of thing. In fact, the artist on Django Zorro was Esteve Pols, who lives in Spain. I want to say Spain. And he doesn't speak a lick of English. So in that case, there's zero communication. Absolutely zero.
Bit of a
didn't
language
speak to
barrier.
him- I didn't speak to him once. No email, no unnecessary in that case. We actually had some troubles working with him here and there. But ultimately, it all came together. He got the job done.
I know it seems like there's a number of like foreign artists who are in foreign countries. I mean, these days I feel like
Yeah. Well, a lot of guys in the Philippines. We when we were looking for a spirit artist, we looked at a couple guys there. I was actually pushing Dan on my father for like a month or two, and really pushing it.
It worked out, so
yeah, it seems like
did,
it
it
definitely
did,
worked
yeah,
out.
yeah, it definitely
Looking
did.
through it looks really nice.
But the communication is key, but it's not as constant as maybe you'd imagine. It's
Right.
not as constant as chasing Amy, right? Like
Two guys at desks across
you
from each
don't
other.
always have that,
Right.
and sometimes that can be a bit of a roadblock on your work because you feel like they're constantly reviewing what you're doing and you're reviewing what they're doing. Sometimes it's best to just hand the work off and let it go. see where the person could take it. Because I think a lot of creative sort of vigor comes from a pace that you set yourself when you're working.
Oh, definitely.
You get it going. You get it. It's like a ball you get rolling. And to be interrupted is sometimes detrimental to the quality of the work.
No, I've definitely found that with writing as well. It's like once you get that kind of pace going, it's finding yourself stopping to like, I don't know, eat or go to the bathroom is just like, no, I need to keep this like pace going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn you, sleep, always getting in the way of me doing more work.
Yeah. Donovan, you got?
I don't think there was any. I guess something that would be interesting to hear maybe is, have there ever been times where you put something out there and somebody's like, oh no, this is not, I know this sounds terrible, but any attempts that didn't pan out as much, like, oh, you colored something, like Morgan talked one time, he colored the desert sky one color and they came back like, what's your problem? Like, this is not,
he
this
did
is
the
not the
night
right
sky
color.
as like orange or something like that.
Yeah, I remember. He's told me about it.
He's
told me
probably
about
pretty
it.
fired up about that. Which, I mean,
Morgan is. Yeah, I was gonna say
Not a lot,
Morgan's
so.
consistently fired up. It seems
Consistently
like.
fired up. Yeah.
he's
That's
always
what we love
angry.
about him.
Yeah, it's cool. But is there anything that ever, you're ever like, whoa, that was not what I expected, or maybe a compliment in a way you're like, dude, I just colored this page, like, thanks.
Sometimes when I'm rushed at the end of an issue, I'll crank out some work. Like I'll be really rushed and I'll do, like 5 or 6 pages in a day because I'm that rushed and the deadline's tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I have to do it. I have to do 5 or 6 pages. And for me, the last 2 to 3 are, no bueno. But I'll have like my artists, like Dan, will come up to me and be like, my favorite page was this one. Like I really liked the way you did this here. And I'm like, oh, that was the rushed page. That was like the page that I thought you would hate, but you actually liked it. It's just everyone's got a different flavor, so you can't please everyone. And I have gotten negative reviews too that they hurt for sure.
Sure. Yeah.
Anytime someone says that your work isn't good, makes you die a little
Yeah.
inside.
Yeah.
That's true with anything
Yeah.
people do.
Yeah.
And especially when they say things about your work that you were so conscious of not doing. For example, I've gotten a review that said that my colors were muted and like too gray. When for me, I always look at my work and I think that's too saturated. That's too much color. I should pare it back. I should bring that back.
It seems your colors seem to be fairly vivid from the stuff I've seen, so I don't know what
Yeah,
that
so when
person's
I don't
talking about.
and that's the thing. It's just some guy in his basement or whatever.
Keyboard
So
courage.
Just
Just,
keyboard courage.
I like
That's
that
exactly
term.
what
I've
it
never heard
is.
that before.
That's
really
it.
not heard that? Or like
No.
people just like, I mean,
No,
that's,
I know exactly what you mean when you say it.
Yes,
That-
yeah.
That's great. Yeah, no, I haven't heard that either.
I coined that.
Phrase.
I coined
It's a Donovan.
Donovan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I want something else to be called the Donovan. My actual contribution. Dang it. No, that's a term I borrowed. But no, that happens a lot of like people
Sure.
who can just say anything.
It's very easy to be critical.
You're never going to find them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
It's why my favorite scene in the end of Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. They got that big list. They track down all the people who said shitty things about them on the internet.
Yeah.
Beat him up, yeah. Okay, cool. So as we sort of wrap that up, we turn now to a segment we do with all of our guests, which is we turn things over to Weird Questions with Donovan Eilert.
So I have 3 questions for you, not exactly comics related. We just need your posterity.
Set the
here.
record straight.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Here we go. This is Weird Questions with Donovan Eilert.
If you had your way, what shoe company would you discontinue? There's a shoe company everybody doesn't care for. What's your flavor?
I would discontinue Timberlands.
Timberlands. Nice choice. John has a very opposing opinion to that. We'll do that off mic. Very, yeah.
My love of Timberlands has been greatly shown on this show.
Yep, absolutely.
Really?
No.
I don't think I've ever worn Timberlands. I've certainly never spoken about them, let alone on this show.
Didn't even know they were a word.
I always see Timberlands and Doc Martens stores, and I think that's just a bunch of overpriced leather, and, not for me.
The gloves come off here. That was beautiful.
That's what happens in Weird Questions. So.
The next question: can you tie your own bow tie?
No.
All right, fair enough. And
You can though, right, Donovan?
yeah, but I wasn't saying it to say that.
All right, all right.
Question, John.
That,
you
you
was.
weren't setting
No,
that
I
up.
wasn't.
You weren't setting that up.
No, I
a
wasn't.
little bit.
No.
All right.
Okay.
You don't get to judge these questions, John. You've given me free reign. And the last
That was my mistake
the
too.
last
so.
question. I'm surprised, but the last question is: what is your favorite thing associated with Germany? I'll give you a hint. There is one wrong answer, and Indiana Jones punches them often.
One wrong answer.
That's good.
Favorite thing associated with Germany. Okay.
It's probably the Wagners themselves.
Ah.
So heavy in German blood we are.
Probably Wagner originally.
Indeed.
There you go.
Very cool. Well,
Thank you very much.
that ends another segment of Weird Questions with Donovan Eilert. So as we finish that up, we turn now to our recommendation segment where we recommend comics we think you should be reading. Gorgoni?
Oh, you're looking at me now.
Yeah. I don't know. I got to start somewhere.
Yeah, I suppose. My recommendation this week is one that I believe has been recommended on the show before.
Probably.
And that's Matt Fraction and Chip Zdarsky's. That last name always throws me off.
Zdarsky.
Zdarsky. The ZD right next to each other really messed
You don't
with me.
see that too often.
It's weird.
Donovan, you had a look of...
I forgot a question I was going to ask Brendan, but that's okay. We can.
We'll figure out. We'll
Okay,
figure it
great.
out.
Don't worry about it.
I'm recommending Sex Criminals.
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry.
I think I have spoken about Sex Criminals on here before, but it's an amazing comic.
Yeah, I just picked up the first two trades of that, and wow. I mean, I knew what to expect a little bit because I'd read the first two issues, but that comic is like just kind of blown my mind a little bit.
Yep.
Also, it's
what it
one of the
does.
comics that I love. I love when comics do this thing where I have no idea where they're going. Like some comics, I've read enough. I'm well read enough to where I can kind of like see the plot structures and see some of the plot threads behind certain books and be like, okay, I kind of know the general gist of where things are going. This comic, I have no freaking clue what's. I know what's going on. I just don't know where they're going to take it, and that's really exciting.
Oh, yeah.
Basic plot is like a couple finds out that. Each of them find out individually that when they orgasm, they can stop time.
Yep.
And then eventually they find each other, and hijinks ensue.
They can stop time together.
Bank robbing hijinks.
It's fun.
Good stuff.
No,
Yeah.
it's really good stuff.
It's super fun.
Matt Fraction continuing his run on just like, why can't he write bad things? Make me feel better about myself. No, he has to be amazing all the time. Brennan?
I have a problem with Casanova.
Do you?
Really?
Can you lay that out for us?
And I love Gabrielle and Fabio so much. They're probably my two favorite current artists in comics.
Okay.
Probably.
But just the story of Casanova doesn't do it for you?
I find it highly pretentious. It takes itself way... It thinks it's so cool.
Yeah, no, I can see that.
Like
I
a
mean,
Casanova.
it's certainly not my favorite.
No,
of
I don't think
Fraction
he was
stuff.
doing that, but this.
Yeah.
Just as a quick note, that's Brennan's opinion. If Matt Fraction's listening, we love it and we want you to come on the show.
I think Matt's work is tremendous.
Oh, yeah.
And he's a great guy.
Is he? He seems like a really cool guy. Anytime I've ever seen him interviewed, or I've met him twice and
At cons?
very briefly at conventions, and he seemed pretty awesome.
But yeah, that's my recommendation.
Brennan, do you have anything you want to recommend? Something you think people should read?
Despite what I just said about Casanova, I love Sex Criminals. I think Fraction's really killing it on that. I like Black Science. I don't know if that's
Black
what I recommend on
Science is
this.
fantastic.
Is that
we
Remender?
may have-
Remender.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Rick
I mean,
Remender.
I'm constantly.
So good.
Remender, I think.
Is it Remender?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Whoa.
Well, we've been mispronouncing. I think there's an episode that came out a little while ago where we might have said Remender 400 times. So, Remender?
I think it's Remender.
Yeah, boy. Well, he's not coming on the show.
Because he listens.
Yeah.
Was a big fan.
No, Black Science is a great comic, though.
Yes. Yeah. I'm really into it.
So a guy at a comic book store pitched it to me as Lost in Space with more gore.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and that's really good. And it also has, I don't want to spoil anything, but it also has kind of a Game of Thrones, you never know who's going to go vibe
Oh,
to it.
absolutely.
And I love that because I'm so sick of predicting the outcome of the most important characters of the story, you know?
You hate to see a guy where it's like, oh, they've clearly got the plot shield on.
Yeah, and it's not always just the hero. Sometimes there's some side characters, you know where they're going. You know if a guy's going to turn evil by the end or if he's doomed and he's going to die as a side character by the end. I like writers that can really just throw you a little curveball every now and then, but not sometimes it's too much. Sometimes they'll just slaughter characters. Like I feel like Walking Dead's kind of getting to that point where they just slaughter characters
just for the shock value of it.
It's almost a soap opera.
Yeah.
It is.
Well, it's been going so
who's
long.
Who's going to die
now,
next, as opposed to who's going to make out next? You know.
Yeah.
But I like Black Science a lot. I also like Low, which I think is
Yes, we that's the episode where we said Mr. Remender's name many times. We have a whole episode where we talk about Low as one of the 3 comics we're talking about.
I like Low a lot. I like Black Science way more. I think that Low is almost as good as Black Science.
Yeah, we're big fans of Low on here. So.
There's also, like we talked earlier, there's a heaviness to that comic.
Right.
Like, you got to take that half an issue at a time. Like, it's just like, I read it actually all in one sitting. Me too. And I was just not the same for like a week. Because you're just like, man, all this like visceral, terrible stuff happening to the most hopeful person in the world. Like, what is happening?
Yeah.
But it's great.
Oh, yeah.
It's
fantastic.
That's weird to say, but.
Very cool. All right. Donovan, what do you got?
Do you have something else to say?
Sorry, did you have more? I didn't.
Right. And those are the same guys, Low and Black Science?
Yeah.
Correct? Yeah, it's mainly sci-fi that I recommend and read these days.
That's cool.
There's a lot of really good sci-fi in comics, I think, now.
Yeah. Saga, that's probably been...
We have
a whole episode.
We had an entire
devoted to Saga,
episode a while back.
Yeah.
Morgan, not a fan of Brian K. Vaughan's writing, but she also voices on the.
Morgan's too cool for. Morgan's the only one too cool for Saga.
Yeah,
everyone I know.
He's the only,
Saga.
the only dissenting opinion I've ever heard about that book. So
Yeah, me too.
when he said it was like, what?
I've had people come up to me and they're like, "Have you read this Saga? I know that you make comics. I never read comics, but have you read this Saga?" Yeah, I've read Saga.
Yeah.
Like, yes, great.
It's fantastic.
Yeah,
It seems. Yeah, it seems like everybody can just we can just accept that and move on. It's amazing. It's incredible.
Take that as rote.
Yeah.
It's Saga. It's pretty amazing. All right.
Yeah, and she's doing Archie now too, which actually looks.
Have you read the first issue of that?
It was good.
It's really we care about Archie Andrews and what he's doing. Yeah,
well,
They've got me back for issue 2.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And you were the biggest anti-Archie.
I was so like how. Halfway through that issue, I was just like, why do I care about Archie? Why are they making me care about Archie?
I think Fiona does a great deal with her expressions. That
my God, yeah.
Like she's
absolutely
so visual, so just man, it's so good.
Yeah, it's amazing. So Donovan, what do you got?
Oh yeah, I've been rereading through Echo, which is a Terry Moore piece.
Yeah,
huge Terry Moore fan. As you know from all of my reviews of Rachel Rising.
It keeps coming up
constantly.
Found some Terry Moore stuff at the library the other day.
Strangers in Paradise?
No. He did, what was it, Twisted Fairy Tales or something?
Oh, I haven't read
Or what was it called? It was basically like an illustrated novel as opposed to like a graphic novel.
Yeah.
And he did like a whole like fairy tale in that.
Cool.
It was like, oh, hey, Terry Moore. Donovan's always talking about this fellow.
He's great. He's a like a writer artist, which I think is super cool to see kind of that. Always in black and white, which is also super cool to see how he fills that out without color. Sorry, I know that's your work right now.
I have a deep respect for black and white work.
It's cool. Anyways, Echo is just wild. I mean, like it opens on somebody flying a new test suit that the company that she's working for explodes, right? And so they explode this suit with a person in it, and these like metallic drops fall all over this girl who now they're sticking to, and she doesn't know what's going on. And then this company's like desperately trying to find her and get it back, and you know that they're up to no good. And it is like, it's so good. It's amazing. Again, I love the art. I love the way he tells stories. You can get the omnibus now that's huge. I mean, it's like Habibi sized omnibus.
What I would say, a book heavy enough to kill a man.
Oh, yep. Absolutely. And having, we're in the middle of Rachel Rising right now, and there's a few trades out. I hope that it finishes with enough content to fill as much as Echo does, because again, huge fan. But Echo is super cool. Another strong female lead. He seems to be drawn to them. and seems to draw them. That's a weird sentence, but I hope it works. Anyways, Echo, super
Give it a
cool.
6.5 out of 10.
Thank you very much. But yeah, that's what I
Very
recommend.
cool. So the book I'm recommending this week it's a Batman book. It's called Batman: Death by Design. It's by Chip Kidd.
Excellent.
Oh yeah, it's just a beautiful book. The art in it is fantastic. It's all pencil work.
Because he is a storyboard artist.
Yeah.
Yes.
It has that kind of feeling. Yeah, it's highly detailed pencil work, and it's also the only thing I could ever describe as an architectural thriller. It's a lot about.
I'm there.
Yeah, it's a lot about Batman stopping somebody from destroying the buildings of Gotham, and yeah, I can't really do it justice. You go look it up, look at the art, because I picked it up a little while back in a bookstore. I was just like, I have to buy this. It's too beautiful looking not to pick up.
Yeah, Pop introduced me to that book and to Chip.
Yeah.
Whose work is awesome.
Yeah, he's fantastic. So Batman Death by Design is the title of that. You guys should check it out, as you should check out all of our recommendations. And if you want to let us know what you think about these, we are on Twitter. We're at Panel on Panels. We're also on Facebook as Panel on Panels. We're on Instagram. And I'm told that Pinterest is a thing, and we're on there.
Your disinterest / not understanding of Pinterest will never be old, John. That joke is always funny.
Always
It
funny.
never stops being funny. I am laughing right now so hard.
Well,
Ha,
if you
ha, 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 ha. John doesn't understand Pinterest.
it's called a runner, Gorgoni. It's what the audience wants. You can also email us for panelandpanels@gmail.com. Brennan, where can people find you online if they want to check out some of your stuff? Or
Find me on Facebook.
all right,
I know it seems kind of mainstream or whatever, but
yeah, that's all right.
Do you have a
Turns out there's a
Tumblr?
lot of people on Facebook.
there are. The best way to find me and to find my work is to go buy it in a store. That's why I work in comics.
Very
and
cool.
That's why it's published on paper.
And your stuff is available pretty much everywhere, I think, isn't it? I mean, anywhere where comics are
Every
sold.
comic book store
Yeah,
in America.
very cool.
There's one. I think they said no.
They said, nah, don't like that guy.
It's just / Wagner.
No Wagner's in here.
Too German.
Yeah.
Too German.
They're still bitter about the thing I told you not to talk about.
Not over it yet.
Too soon.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, thank you, Brennan, for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Well, we had a great time talking to you. I think that's going to do it for Panel on Panels this week. I've been John Campbell.
I am currently Mike Gorgoni.
I will always be Donovan Eilert.
Keep reading comics, everyone.